Welcome to the Pro Test LSAT Strategy Guide. This video walks you through proven, step-by-step strategies for all three sections of the LSAT: reading comprehension, logical reasoning, and analytical reasoning. Whether you are just starting your LSAT preparation or looking to sharpen your technique before test day, this guide will give you the frameworks, diagrams, and mental processes you need to approach every question with confidence. Let's get started.
Reading comprehension makes up roughly 27% of your scored LSAT questions. Each section contains 4 passage sets, 3 single passages, and 1 comparative reading set, each followed by 5 to 8 questions. The goal is not to memorize every detail of the passage. The goal is to understand the author's main point, the structure of the argument, and the purpose of each paragraph. Think of each passage as a conversation. Someone is making a claim, supporting it with evidence, and sometimes acknowledging objections. Your job is to track that conversation efficiently.
The single most important reading comprehension strategy is active reading through passage mapping. As you read, you annotate each paragraph with a brief label, 3 to 5 words, describing its main function. Look at the diagram on screen. Paragraph 1 typically introduces the topic and the author's main claim or the issue at stake. Paragraph 2 usually provides background, context, or a contrasting viewpoint. Paragraph 3 often contains the author's evidence or analysis. Paragraph 4, when present, resolves the tension or draws a conclusion. Each time you finish a paragraph, ask yourself, what did this paragraph do? Did it introduce, contrast, support, complicate, or conclude? Write that word next to the paragraph. When you reach the questions, your passage map tells you exactly where to look, so you spend your time verifying answers, not hunting through the text.
Reading comprehension questions fall into predictable categories, and each category has a specific approach. Follow the decision tree on screen. First ask, does the question ask about the whole passage or a specific part? If the whole passage, it is a main point or primary purpose question. Go to your passage map summary and identify the author's central claim. If the question refers to a specific part, identify the line reference or paragraph, return to that section, and read a few sentences above and below for context. Inference questions ask what must be true based on the passage. The correct answer is always directly supported by text, never an extrapolation. Author's attitude questions require you to identify tone words in the passage. Strengthen or weaken questions are rare in RC, but treat them exactly as you would in logical reasoning. Find the claim and evaluate whether the answer supports or undermines it.
Wrong answers in reading comprehension are built from 4 predictable traps. Look at the chart on screen. The first trap is too extreme. The answer uses words like always, never, all, or none when the passage uses more qualified language. The second trap is out of scope. The answer introduces a concept or entity the passage never discussed. The third trap is opposite. The answer states the reverse of what the passage says, often by flipping the author's position. The fourth trap is half right, half wrong. The first part of the answer is accurate, but the second part contradicts or distorts the passage. Train yourself to eliminate using these 4 categories on every question, and your accuracy will improve dramatically.
Logical reasoning accounts for roughly 50% of your LSAT score, making it the most important section to master. Each logical reasoning question presents a short stimulus, an argument or scenario, followed by a question stem and 5 answer choices. Every logical reasoning question tests your ability to identify and evaluate the logical relationship between premises and a conclusion. The foundation of every strategy in this section is the same. Find the conclusion, find the premises, and identify the gap between them.
Look at the argument anatomy diagram on screen. Every LSAT argument has 3 components. The conclusion is the main claim the author is trying to establish. It answers the question, so what is the author trying to prove? Signal words like therefore, thus, hence, so, and consequently point to the conclusion. The premises are the evidence offered in support. Signal words include because, since, given that, and as a result of. The assumption is the unstated gap that bridges the premises to the conclusion. It is what the author takes for granted but never says. This gap is where almost every logical reasoning question lives. Weaken questions attack the assumption. Strengthen questions support the assumption. Assumption questions ask you to name it. Flaw questions ask you to describe why the gap is problematic.
Use this decision tree every time you read a logical reasoning stem. Step 1. Identify the question type from the stem language. If you see weakens, undermines, or calls into question, it is a weakened question. If you see supports, strengthens, or most helps to justify, it is a strengthened question. If you see assumption required or necessary assumption, use the negation test. If you see sufficient assumption, find the answer that, if true, guarantees the conclusion. If you see flaw, error in reasoning, or vulnerable to criticism, describe the logical gap in abstract terms. If you see must be true or most strongly supported, treat it like an inference question and look only for what is absolutely proven by the stimulus. If you see parallel reasoning, match the logical structure, not the topic. Always pre-phrase your answer before reading the choices. Students who read the choices first are far more likely to be drawn into attractive distractors. The negation test is the most powerful tool for necessary assumption questions. Here is how it works, as shown in the diagram on screen. Step 1. Read the stimulus and identify the conclusion and premises. Step 2. Read each answer choice and negate it, flip it to its opposite. Step 3. Ask yourself, if this negated version were true, would the argument fall apart? If yes, that answer is the necessary assumption. The correct answer, when negated, destroys the argument. Wrong answers, when negated, have no effect on the argument or only weaken it slightly. Practice this on every assumption question until it becomes automatic. The negation test works because a necessary assumption is, by definition, something the argument cannot survive without. Analytical reasoning, also called logic games, makes up roughly 23% of your LSAT score. Each section contains 4 games, typically one sequencing game, one grouping game, one matching or hybrid game, and one more complex game. Each game has a scenario, a set of rules, and 5 to 7 questions. The key insight is this: logic games are entirely mechanical. Unlike reading comprehension and logical reasoning, there is no interpretation required. You are simply applying rules to a constrained system. Students who struggle with logic games almost always share one problem. They are not diagramming aggressively enough before they read the questions. There are 4 core game types you must recognize instantly. Look at the chart on screen. Sequencing games ask you to order entities in positions. Your diagram is a numbered line with slots. Grouping games ask you to distribute entities into categories. Your diagram is a set of columns or buckets with size constraints labeled. Matching games ask you to assign attributes to entities across multiple dimensions. Your diagram is a grid. Hybrid games combine 2 of these structures, most commonly sequencing with a grouping or attribute layer on top. As soon as you read the scenario, identify the game type and draw the appropriate base diagram before you read a single rule.
For sequencing games, follow these 4 steps shown in the diagram. Step 1. Draw your base, a numbered row of slots from 1 to however many positions exist. Step 2. Read each rule and translate it into a visual notation directly above or below the base. A rule like K comes before L becomes K dash dash L with an arrow. A rule like H is in slot 3 or 4 becomes H with a bracket showing slots 3 and 4. Step 3. Combine rules that share an entity into chains. If K is before L and L is before M, chain them, K, L, M in sequence. Step 4. Identify floaters. entities with no rules, and note that they can go almost anywhere, which makes them useful for filling in remaining slots. Before touching the questions, ask yourself, what is the most restricted entity? Where can it go? That usually gives you your first deduction.
For grouping games, follow these 4 steps. Step 1. Draw your base as labeled columns representing each group, with the required size noted at the top of each column. Step 2. For each rule, create a shorthand notation. If F and G cannot be in the same group, write F/G, meaning they are split. If H is in cardiology, implies K is in oncology, write it as a conditional. H card arrow K onc. Step 3. Combine conditionals. If you know the contrapositive of each rule, you can chain them to find hidden deductions. The contrapositive of H card implies K onc is not K onc implies not H card. Step 4. Look for entities forced into a specific group by the combined effect of rules. These are your deductions. Write them directly onto the diagram as fixed facts before the questions begin. Every question you answer draws from this diagram, not from rereading the rules.
Let's close with time management. On the LSAT, each section is 35 minutes. For reading comprehension, target approximately 8 to 9 minutes per passage set. For logical reasoning, target approximately 1 minute and 20 seconds per question. Leave harder questions marked and return to them. For analytical reasoning, spend the first 3 to 4 minutes on game setup and diagrams, then work through questions quickly. The most important habit you can build is consistency. Use the same frameworks, the same diagram structures, and the same question attack strategies on every practice test. Repetition builds speed. Speed builds confidence. And confidence on test day is what separates a good score from a great one. Good luck from ProTest, Professional Testing Resource Center.